Welcome to Talking Heads on USA Global TV, starring the one and only wonderful Dr. JACALYN. It's a prestigious place where world-class influencers and experts meet, and where you'll find the most trusted advisors and coaches for all things in life and business. Visit usaglobaltv.com to sign up for our newsletter, get the value you need, and be first in line to learn about events and giveaways and other valuable content. Connect with us. Email Dr. JACALYN at usaglobaltv.com to talk about how you can become part of USA Global TV. That's USA Global TV, where the doctor is always in.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to USA Global TV and Radio. I'm Dr. JACALYN KERBECK, and our show today is The Power of Etiquette and Manners. My co-host, Philip Sykes, is not available today. He is the day off, so it's just me and our fabulous guest. Our guest has been here before. She's joining us from London, and she works with young people on their personal branding. She is a certified etiquette coach, and she helps young people with the etiquette as well as their emotions. And these are such important topics. I'm so glad that she's come back to join us. Her name is Sonia MOLEDINA. Welcome.
Good afternoon, Dr. JACALYN. Well, for me, it's afternoon.
Yes,
it's morning for yourself.
It's still morning here, but it's afternoon, it's evening somewhere. We're just thrilled to have you back because, as I mentioned in the beginning, such an important topic, working with young people to give them the tools that they need at a very early age so they actually can have a head start in life in terms of self-esteem, inner peace, and understanding how to treat others with respect and integrity. So thank you for being here.
Thank you so much for having me again.
So I'm going to spotlight you, and if you could share with our audience a little bit about your background and what prompted you to work with young people as opposed to adults or other groups.
Yeah, thank you, Dr. JACALYN. So as Dr. JACALYN said, my name is Sonya MOLEDINA. I used to be a project manager in the corporate sort of private and public sectors in the UK. And although I loved my job and I loved the people that I worked with, and it was a fascinating sort of very dynamic role, I didn't feel that actually it was my calling or my true sort of purpose in life. And I was very fortunate to stumble across Philip Sykes' organization called the British School of Excellence. I undertook a train the trainer in etiquette with his school. I undertook some emotional intelligence training amongst other courses. And I think what also happened for me is I became a mother in that time. I've got two children, a 13-year-old and a 9-year-old. And I became much more interested in, I've always had a passion for self-development. And I felt that when I was growing up, there wasn't that much advice or guidance in terms of having a growth mindset, becoming the best version of yourself, instilling strong self-esteem. And I think often we learn through our mistakes and our own experiences in life. And I just think it's wonderful that there's so much more available to children from a young age. And I wanted to be part of that process to instill guidance, coaching, and facilitate lifelong learning for children from a young age. So I started to go sort of embark on this journey with my own two children, and decided it would be wonderful to help other children in the community as well. So that's sort of a little bit about my journey.
That's very exciting. And I'm wondering, when you're working with the young people, are you also working in tandem with the parents so that they understand what to expect through this process?
Yeah, my initial contact is with the parents, and often I hold sort of talks for parents to explain them what I'll be sharing with their children, what key messages and learnings I'll be embedding in with their children. And usually when I conduct workshops with children, I give sort of feedback to the parents on what I've learned and what are some of the key messages, because ultimately, in terms of emotional intelligence and etiquette, parents and caregivers are the ultimate role models. They're the ones that are spending majority of time with their children, and parents are the ones that know their children best. So I can only put the icing on the cake. I can only come in to support that role, but I think we cannot underestimate the role of parents, grandparents, and other family members, caregivers, and how they're emulating and role modeling behavior for children, whether they're aware of that or not.
That's a great point. So a young person could go through the work with you, and then it turns out that the adults back home don't have the same etiquette and manners maybe that their child does.
Yeah, I think as human beings, we're beings sort of having a human experience. We're spiritual beings having a human experience, and whether we're younger beings or slightly older beings, we're also learning. We also come with our own baggage. We're navigating through life's challenges. And as a parent, I really empathize, because parents have to think about running a home, managing the finances, going to work, raising children. Although it's such an important role, it's not the be all and end all of their existence. So it's a difficult job. They used to say it takes a village to raise a child. And in a way, there's less of that village support of family members and networks. And that's where I think people like me come in, just to provide a little bit of support and reinforcement to support parents to do their job well.
Yes, I would agree with you. And we've talked about this a number of times on this specific show, but for people who are joining us, we've got two new radio channels. When we think about etiquette and emotional intelligence, I believe it's evolved over time, where it used to be pulling out a chair for someone or opening a door. And of course, obviously those things are still considered to be polite and things that we should do and part of etiquette and manners, but it's expanded so much. And I was wondering if you could just speak to that. When we think about emotional intelligence and etiquette, what does that really look like overall from a high level?
Yeah, I think sometimes there's a perception that etiquette is elitist, it's outdated, it's old-fashioned, it's not relevant to modern society. And I think nothing could be further from the truth, because I think having good manners will never go out of fashion. Treating people with courtesy and consideration, as long as we exist in society, it's forever important. And I think sort of Philip once said to me, actually, that etiquette is a traffic lights of society. And I love to explain it to my students that way, that we know the red tells us to stop, the green tells us we can go. And if we didn't have these rules or social conducts, we'd all be bumping into each other. Society would be a disaster. So it's always relevant. And I think what I try and do with my workshops personally is I look at the child's world. Their world is school, socials and play dates, their relationship with their family. And I talk to them about how they can bring in emotional intelligence and etiquette into these different aspects of their life. So it's relatable, so they can understand, right, when I'm spending time with my friends or family, I mustn't let my mood control my manners, for example. Or when I'm out and about in the world, maybe I could offer up my seat on the train for someone who needs it more than me. So how they can actually implement these life lessons into their practical day-to-day lives.
I love that you shared that. And what I'm wondering, as a continuation of talking about good manners, you just mentioned mood. When you are together with family or friends or even coworkers and you're not in a great mood, is it appropriate to let people know, hey, I just want to be honest with you, I'm not feeling so great today, I'm not having a great day, so I apologize in advance if I'm a little distant or removed? Or do we just keep it to ourselves?
Well, I think it depends on who you're with and what the situation is. I mean, I would generally say to my students that developing self-control is really, really important. If they've had a bad day, they've got too much homework, maybe they had a fallout with a friend, they're overwhelmed, they're tired. It's about recognizing your own triggers. And I think even as adults with a lot of life experience, we find it really hard to catch our own trigger points before we've actually crossed that boundary and become a little bit out of control or cranky or irritable. So it's knowing about recognizing those physical and mental changes that are happening for you, and thinking, right, I don't want to say something that I'm going to regret or do something that I'm going to regret. So just pause. Maybe, take 6 seconds to just think about it before you respond, rather than saying, what do you want? Leave me alone. What is it? And being a bit short with your family or friends. And if you think, actually, I'm particularly having a bad day, I would say to the students that I teach, well, maybe you would want to say to your mum or dad, for example, I'm really not feeling in the best of mood. I've had quite a tough day. I just want a few minutes in my room by myself. And later on, perhaps we can talk about it. And then you've kind of you've regulated your own emotions. You've recognized what's happening for you. You've taken that time out. And then when the time is right, you can address that. And maybe if you want to, you can then share what's going on for you. We don't always have that luxury. Sometimes we're at work or school where we just have to master our emotions and get on with the lesson, spend time with someone that's perhaps irritating us, whether that's at school in teamwork, or whether that's in a corporate environment when we're working on a project with someone. Sometimes it's just about regulating ourselves within our own minds. And I think that it takes a lot for children. It takes a lot for adults, let alone for children.
Yes, again, really good points that you're bringing up. And I don't have any children. I'm not a parent. But when I think about children and what they've had to go through in the last 2 years at least, and how different it was for me when I was growing up, not having to live through a pandemic. And then the fact that many children are growing up with this technology everywhere all the time. I'm wondering, what type of coaching do you give to young people when they're feeling overwhelmed, and maybe they are spending a lot of time on their devices, and that could also cause overwhelm, what they're reading about what's going on, and all these social media platforms, and everybody's great, everything's fantastic, oh, look at me now. So what kind of coaching do you give on that?
Well, one of the key things I work with my students about is your image and your personal brand. And I think when especially sort of young people, maybe Generation Z, they sort of think about that. They think very much about their physical appearance. We are in a very material world, which has definitely been exacerbated by social media, where they see people looking perfect. They don't see the emotions or the reality of what's going on behind these perfect images. We see beautifully decorated homes. We see beautifully like laid out meals. I think social media, definitely, there's a lot of sort of perceived perception out there. And one of the things I really talk to my students about is the fact that don't be so self-engrossed. Yes, there's social media out there, but it's not all about your selfies and your Instagram being Instagram perfect, and TikTok and your Snapchat. You need to think about what you're cultivating on the inside of you. What are you doing for other people? Have a what can I do for you attitude. What kind of, are you kind? What kind of human being are you? How can you be of service to others? So I think it's that sort of nudging them in the right direction, that it's not all about that outward persona. What inner work are you doing? And I think as adults, we have perhaps more life experience. We've made mistakes, and sometimes we've learned the hard way. I know, for example, in my early days of corporate life, perhaps I sent an email at work which was full of errors, or I would procrastinate and leave my looming university and work deadlines, and then later on feel the consequences of my actions of why did I not start that earlier, or perhaps not being on time. And the reason I love working with children is that firstly, they've got this natural kind of innate innocence. They very much live for the moment. They perhaps haven't developed the skills and experience that we have. I feel we can, as grown-ups, we can pass on nuggets of wisdom, as long as it's done in a non-patronizing manner, through discussions, through engagements, through saying to them, well, what do you think of this scenario, and what do you think about this going on in the world? But of course, they also have to learn through their own experience. We cannot just be helicopter caregivers. It's just about giving a few pointers in the right direction to help them along the way.
Beautiful. We're going to take a commercial break and we're going to hear from some of our sponsors. And I've been playing this clip frequently. And because you're in London, you might find it to be of interest, but there's a movie that's actually out over there. It's going to be out here probably in a week or two. And the title is Downton Abbey, A New Era. So it's out there. You might want to go and see it. So we're going to watch that and another clip, and then we'll be right back. Thank you. Everyone, and welcome back to USA Global TV and Radio. I'm Dr. JACALYN KERBECK, and we are here with our certified etiquette coach and expert in etiquette and emotions. Welcome back, Sonia. Nice to have you here with us.
Thank you for having me again, Dr. JACALYN.
It's always a fascinating conversation. And as you know, we just saw a clip about listening, and I teach the power of listening. How does listening come into play in terms of listening skills and young people? How important is it to be able to learn effective listening skills as a young person?
Gosh, I think this is such an incredibly important and very overlooked skill, especially in today's society where everything is so fast paced. Often we're absorbing a lot of information very quickly. And I think because of the nature of the fast-paced world in which we live, people don't have time and they don't have patience. So to recultivate the art of listening is so important. And I always say to my students, listen to understand, not just to respond. Don't be so busy thinking about what you're going to say next that you're not really listening to what the other person is saying. And I'm really fascinated by the whole concept of what makes someone charismatic, what makes someone charming. And often when we think about charismatic, charming people, we might have a vision of someone perhaps beautiful, sort of standing in a networking or being in the middle of the room, surrounded by people hung up on every word that they're saying. Whereas actually, I think one of the very interesting things about charisma is that a charismatic person is a really good listener. They make people feel flattered. They make people feel important. They give people time and attention. And it's such a powerful tool to make people feel understood and make people feel valued.
I love what you just said there. Yay. Thank you. Because, it's, to me, I feel like when we have the opportunity to be fully present and engaged and giving that other person a safe space to share, that helps take us one step closer to peace, whether it's inner peace, world peace, instead of constantly over talking each other, or as soon as someone says something, you just shut down because you've already judged what they've said, or you don't like what they've said. So now you've judged them. And I think if at a young age we were taught how to listen effectively and be fully present when possible. We can't always be fully present, but yet if someone comes to us with something that's really important, that we say, listen, I don't have the time right this minute, but if you give me 5 minutes, 10 minutes, 50, I promise I'll be fully there for you. And what are you finding in terms of feedback from your clients when they are learning these new skills, whether it comes to listening, emotional intelligence, etiquette? How are they feeling about that opportunity to learn new things?
Well, I think I'm finding as a parent, and I think a lot of my clients are finding, that for young people these days, they're in a very competitive world in terms of trying to get a place at competitive university courses, or enter the workplace. And there's a lot of emphasis on academics, their English and their math skills, and having a very glossy resume. And one of the things I have found in my own experience, and I don't know if you can also relate to this or your listeners can, I know when I was working, for example, there was one gentleman actually who was sort of the manager of the finance department, and he actually was not the most educated person. He didn't have glowing academic grades. He didn't actually start off with a glowing resume. And he came from a very humble background. He actually wasn't the most eloquent or even the most well-dressed person in the room, but he was a fantastic listener. He knew how to work the room. He was a fantastic person to work for and work with. And he just got, over the years, he just got promotion after promotion. And I think I remember feeling baffled that why is it that this guy is just getting promoted when there's actually other people that are perhaps on paper better qualified than him. But I think I think what I'm also trying to get across to the parents of the children that I teach is that there's a place for academia, there's a place for a glossy resume, but there's also life skills, social skills, being charismatic, being a good listener, like you said, all of those skills that you can't put a value on, but it definitely enhances your personal and professional relationships.
I love the way you describe that, especially, I haven't heard that term before, a glossy resume, but that makes a lot of sense. It's all shiny and look at me, look what I did, look at my degrees, versus some of these soft skills or these skills for being an effective communicator. I can think back to through my corporate career, I think it was 28 years, and I can remember the people who were excellent listeners. And you remember the people who didn't listen to you, that you knew anytime you were going to interact with them, they were going to be doing something else and giving you just part of their attention. So there's something to be said about building up a glossy resume of effective communication skills, effective life skills that are more valuable, really, as a human being than some of these others. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, I think, Dr. JACALYN, it's about listening with your ears. I think it's also about listening and tuning in with your other senses as well. And going back to my whole sort of concept about people that are charismatic, yes, they're fantastic listeners and they give people their time and attention, but they're also looking and sensing what other people's needs are. You know, can I help you bring in the shopping? If you're having a meal with that sort of person, they might say, well, may I pass you the vegetables or potatoes? They're looking, in the workplace of where people need help, at home, in their social interactions. They're using their eyes, ears, all their senses to try and think, well, actually, how can I be of service to others? How can I help? What can I do? And having that what can I do for you attitude. So I think it's about really tuning in with our entirety of not just, and I think it's about being a bit selfless, rather than selfish, and seeing what other people's needs are. And I think it's that sort of invisible energy with really visible effects, because it's very subtle, that what makes someone a great listener, or what makes them tuned into other people. What is it that they're doing or saying that makes other people feel special? And I think also all of this, it makes you more approachable. It helps you to connect with other people. It makes you a better human being, essentially.
Yes, and I think also, to your point, there are definitely people who have left me feeling like I really mattered because they were fully present, whether it was just listening or their kindness or their openness. And especially, we all know people who want to talk about themselves and they could go on and on and on, and they never, I mean, it's normal cadence in a conversation. You say something, I listen, I comment, that I say, and back and forth. But when people monopolize a conversation or they dominate the conversation, it starts to get really boring and it doesn't actually feel that great. So my question for you is, are these skills things that innately we are born with, or are they things that maybe we were born with? We grew up in an environment that was conducive to kindness and generosity, but maybe we didn't, and we can learn these skills by working with someone like you.
I think we develop and learn these skills through experience, through our mistakes, through navigating kind of what's working in a relationship and what's not. And you sort of talked about sort of people that perhaps talk about themselves too much. And I think I think through experience or through sort of a bit of coaching and guidance, I know I have to say to my students that be sensitive. Don't just talk about yourself. You might have been, for example, on an amazing holiday and you're excited and you want to share about your amazing holiday. Maybe you're talking to someone that doesn't have, for example, the finances to go on this extravagant holiday that you've been on. Maybe there's something else going on for them. They don't have the time. They don't have the health or whatever it might be to actually have that experience. Are you really sharing the right thing with the right person? Are they genuinely interested in what you're saying? And I think sometimes, we find ourselves in having these one-sided conversations or insensitive conversations. And I do have to say to the students that I work with that you really need to not sabotage conversations. Don't make it all about you. Be a good listener. If someone's telling their story, don't just jump in, with your story. If someone says, oh, I went skiing, don't say, well, I've been skiing, and just jump in with your own experience. Let people share what they want to share before you share your version. Give people the space to express themselves. And, I think sometimes this does have to be taught rather than us just, unfortunately, I don't think we are born with these skills. We have to learn these traffic lights of society as we go along.
And I think that's a great way, a great analogy and visual to think of the traffic lights. I think that makes a lot of sense. Something else, just from my own personal experience of knowing people who are always trying to one up whatever it is that you're sharing, they did it better, they did it more, whatever it is. And I have thought to myself, maybe it's because they're insecure, or maybe it's because whomever they were in a relationship with or their family members didn't listen to them, so they never felt heard, and now they feel like they constantly have to validate themselves.
Yeah, absolutely. I think often when people display kind of difficult or unfavorable behavior, often there's something going on for them. They've got their own issues, and I think they need to be treated with empathy and consideration. And I think that's where, and part of etiquette also is not judging people constantly, giving people the benefit of the doubt, even if their behavior is unfavorable, thinking, actually, maybe it's they're crying, like you said, they're crying out for attention. They've got some unmet needs, and I think it's really important to bear that in mind. And I think etiquette doesn't mean, though, that you have to just make allowances for people just because of either they're doing it through ignorance or through some unmet needs. You can always politely say to someone that, would you mind if I just finish my story first, and then I'd love to hear about your experience. You can still be assertive. You can still get your needs met without trampling, without sort of being hard-footed and trampling on somebody else's shoes.
Yes, good point. And I'd love to have you comment on this. I interview people all the time, right? 20, 25 shows a week. And for the most part, overall, in general, disclaimer, most people understand that when you're being interviewed, it's a back and forth, it's a give and take. There's a question, there's an answer. But many times people don't. And I'll have them up on Spotlight and they could be talking for 10 minutes. And because I'm the listening mentor and I give people a safe space to share, I don't ever want to interrupt. But at the same time, we have a program to run and there's certain timings that we have to keep to. And it's like that also in the real world, that maybe you're having a conversation with someone and you told them in advance, I have 15 minutes for you right now, and they're going over, but you have things you have to do and you don't want to be disrespectful or rude. So you just mentioned that it's okay to stand up for yourself and to confidently say something. It's I love what you're sharing, but we have to move on. What's a graceful way to do that? Let's say here on this platform or in a meeting or in any situation where there's really a time limit, but you want to still respect what the other person is saying and give them space.
Yeah, I think it's about being objective and stating the fact and sort of saying, I absolutely love what you're sharing. I'm loving your input and the value that we're getting from this. Unfortunately, we have to move on because of, in the essence of time, we have to move on. And I know sort of I often say I was taught this actually when I was in the workplace, and I'm sure many other people have heard about the sandwich technique, where if you're giving feedback, you say something positive, then you might say something a little bit more negative or deliver the message that you need to deliver. And then you wrap it up by saying something positive again. So it might be something like, I'm really enjoying this conversation. Unfortunately, we are out of time, but I'd love to reconnect with you again in the future. So you're sort of saying the positive and then the negative and then wrapping it up with something positive. And I think tone of voice and how you say things is also really important. If I said to someone, stop doing that, or please stop doing that, there's a big difference in or if you say sorry or you say I'm sorry, tone of voice makes a tremendous difference. So I think if you're well-intentioned and your body language and your choice of words is polite and respectful, it's absolutely okay to be assertive. And I bring this up because often when I teach students and we talk about etiquette and we talk about emotional intelligence, I also want them to know simultaneously that this is empowering. It's not about being a doormat. If someone says something to you that you're not happy with, you can say, actually, you might pull them aside. You might not want to embarrass them in front of everyone, but you might say, I'm really upset by what you said. In fact, I'm pretty hurt and upset by what you said to me, or I don't think what you said or did was okay. So one can be assertive and have confidence and have personal boundaries and still observe the rules of etiquette and emotional intelligence.
Thank you so much. And I love that sandwich technique. That sounds like a great way to still be true to yourself and honor the other person and invite them for another conversation at another time.
Yeah.
Fantastic. I would love for you to share with our audience what that process looks like to work with you. Excuse me. We do have your information here, but people are listening on the radio if they're or they're not able to read. So could you please share what the process looks like and how people can contact you?
Sure. So I think the easiest thing to do is to go to my website, which is www.etiquetteandemotions.com. And there you will find one of my workshops, which is called Confidence, Conversations and Charisma. And it's aimed for children between the ages of 7 and 14. I also offer a workshop in emotional intelligence. And I support students through school interviews for their school applications. And all of that is laid out sort of on different tabs of my website. Or you can contact me at info@etiquetteandemotions.com. or through the website, and we can connect. So thank you so much.
Thank you so much. And thank you for being here and sharing all of this great wisdom with us. And I personally have learned so much, and I honor you and just hope that you'll come back and see us again.
Thank you so much. It's been an absolute pleasure.
Thank you. Bye for now.
Take care. Bye-bye.
Bye. Thank you so much to each and every one of you who watch our shows or who are listening to our shows. If you'd like to be a guest, you can go over to our website, which is usaglobaltv.com. You can also go to our YouTube channel, which is, guess what? That's right, USA Global TV. Our next show is coming up. It's our Talking Heads platform. This is a platform where people come from around the world to share their knowledge and their expertise in their own 30-minute show. So please stay with us wherever it is that you're watching from. We'll be right back shortly. I'm going to run to the other studio, and I wish you a beautiful weekend. Bye for now.